People of the internet, Retro Raconteur here. I'm just a dad who loves games and the stories they tell, and we are back with another Hogwarts Legacy video. And today, I have what I think is a very interesting question about the canon, and it's regarding something that Troy Leavitt said, a dev who previously worked on Hogwarts Legacy, in one of his recent interviews. But before we get to that, though, let's talk about the latest rumor roundup. Yes, I know you guys are wondering. You've been hitting me up on Twitter. You've been sending me messages. What do I think about all of these March rumors that are seemingly circulating around Hogwarts Legacy? Look, I'll be completely honest with you guys. I don't think anybody knows. I think no one knows except for Avalanche. As I've tried to explain a couple of times on different videos that I do here, I actually work in marketing, not related to the video game industry, but I do work in marketing. And even if one of these supposed Twitter insiders actually has a source, the information that they have can change very rapidly, and it also depends on who they are getting the information from. When it comes to marketing, yes, as a marketer, you love a nice, clean calendar when you can say, here's exactly when this announcement's gonna hit, here's when we're gonna release this, we're gonna have this press release, we're gonna release this to the media on this date, and it all works out nice and smooth. However, anyone who works in marketing knows that this is not how it works. At least not all the time, because there's always other things happening that are going to affect that. This could be little things, this could be big things. But my overall point here is that even if account NGT or Robert Serrano or whomever you may find on Twitter that's talking about Hogwarts Legacy, even if they actually do have some legitimate piece of information, it could absolutely change. And so that's why I just don't put a whole lot of stock in this whole insider game that goes on Twitter. Because at some point, they're going to be right. And to me, I mean, March makes as good a sense as any. I think the most credible piece we have here is that Troy Leavitt, in response to Alex on Podcast Now, he actually left a comment on one of Alex's videos where Alex was talking about all of these March rumors that we're hearing. And you got to keep in mind that Troy has been removed from the project for a while, which he himself said, I have no inside information on this. However, to him, the timing would feel right. And that is because of the fact, if you go to the Avalanche website right now, if you go to the Hogwarts Legacy website, you will see that they are still saying 2022. And also, the last official word from Avalanche was them promising that more news was coming in 2022. So here we are in the third month of the year. The marketing for Fantastic Beasts is really starting to ramp up right now, but where is Hogwarts Legacy? Is it part of the Fantastic Beasts marketing plan, or do they want to get that out of the way first and then have Hogwarts Legacy have its own dedicated time? Personally, this is just my opinion, but I think it would be a huge mistake to wait until the summer to say anything at all. I really think to put an effective marketing plan in place for a property like Harry Potter, the type of marketing that this deserves, they really need to start talking about this game, and soon. I mean, we have right now what is the fourth most viewed video on the entirety of PlayStation's official YouTube channel. I want you to think about that for a second. I mean, that is absolutely bonkers, insane, and it's not even a first-party title. I mean, this is something that's going to be on Xbox and PC as well, and yet here it is getting ready to surpass Spider-Man. In fact, by the time this video is out, it may have already surpassed the Spider-Man trailer as being the number 3 video on the PlayStation account. However, if you look around online, there's only the diehards like us talking about this game. No insults to those of you on the Harry Potter subreddit. I'm reading on there daily as well, but it really feels like it is a small group of us there who are talking about this game every day. I feel like the vast majority of those 28 million views that the original trailer has on YouTube are from the more mainstream Harry Potter audience who have almost completely forgot about this game at this point. In fact, they may even be confusing it with the Magic Awakened game that just had some big news a few weeks ago about that it's supposedly coming out in the US soon. They acted like it was right around the corner and then took all our emails and then silence. I haven't heard anything about it, so I have no idea what's going on there. Hopefully that one is coming soon as well. So while I know to us who are constantly looking for Hogwarts Legacy news and updates, and those of you who watch this channel regularly, it may seem to you like, yeah, they would probably be fine if they waited until the summer and did kind of a big marketing push then for a holiday release. Would that be enough time to reignite that mainstream Harry Potter audience? Personally, again, this is just my opinion. As a marketer myself, I think it is a huge missed opportunity if they let March and April go by where you have a mainstream Harry Potter audience going to see a new movie and you say absolutely nothing at all. I feel like March/April is kind of a do or die moment for Hogwarts Legacy, at least in terms of 2022. And again, I feel like I always need to caveat this because every time you talk about stuff like this, people always want to say, we don't want to rush Avalanche. What are you doing? Don't rush the devs. And I totally agree. I'm not talking about the developers here at all. I am talking about the marketing campaign for Hogwarts Legacy. Now, on the other side of things, I also have to recognize that I don't have the type of inside information that would be necessary to know. Maybe things aren't looking good and the marketers don't really have a lot to say yet. Maybe they're waiting on something to kind of turn the corner before they really start to highly market and highly promote the game. Sure, there's going to be plenty of time in the summer as well. We know the Summer Game Fest is coming back. Honestly, I have no idea what's going on with E3, if it's officially canceled, if they're bringing it back, if they're going to try to do something similar. So who knows? The point is that if they do wait to summer, there will be plenty of opportunity there as well. But again, and this is just what boggles my mind here, when people say they're wanting news and updates, it's not like we need some vast new trailer, which don't get me wrong, I would absolutely love. It's not even like we're saying we need a release date or anything like that. We just want to hear about the game. Maybe another PlayStation blog post where a Q&A from one of the developers who's working on the game. Talk to us about some of the mechanics. Don't be afraid. I mean, sure, if you want to keep story stuff under wraps, that's fine. But for a completely new original story, original game, all we know right now is third-person, open-world action RPG. That's it. And I really do think it's important to give players some type of expectation in advance for the type of game that they're going to be experiencing. I talked on this channel about how enemy camps are going to be in the game, and that set off a huge discussion in the Hogwarts Legacy fandom. Some people very thrilled by that idea, some people very concerned and worried by that idea that these are going to be boring, repetitive things that get in the way. And so I really just don't see the harm in talking about these mechanics and talking about how the spell casting is going to work. You don't have to reveal every single spell that's going to be in the game, but talk to us about the gameplay. Let us know what we're going to be able to expect, because I think it will only increase and build the hype for the game. Now, I mentioned a question relating to Canon at the very beginning of this video. And Troy Leavitt, he's done a couple of interviews recently, former dev who worked on the game. The most recent one was with Colin Moriarty on his Sacred Symbols Plus podcast. I watched the whole thing. It's a very interesting interview. If you're only interested in Hogwarts Legacy, there's really not a lot there about Hogwarts Legacy, but there was one incredibly interesting snippet that I'm going to play for you here.
And we actually got a little bit of crossover back and forth, like on Cars 2, we had to come up with just a little story here. We had to come up with some sort of acronym for the racing universe that you were in. We came up with this idea of Chrome, which was Command Headquarters for Recon Operations and Motorized Espionage, right? Anyway, so that was in the game. That was our excuse for what was going on in the game. Well, they liked it so much at Pixar that if you watch the movie Cars 2, Chrome is the name of the secret spy organization that Finn McMissile works for. So that came from the game world back to
That's cool.
The movie world. So that sort of interaction, I think, is wonderful. And that's why, like on Hogwarts Legacy, where we're at now, I'm like, I tell guys at the studio, this might be canon at some point in the future because they're so deep in the property and trying to treat it with so much respect and authenticity that it just dovetails in really well. And I think that's what Avalanche is good at, is making IPs feel right.
I love this little tidbit from Troy. I think this is a fascinating look into the world of video games and how they kind of play back and forth with the main property, quote unquote, which in this case would be like the movie when he's talking about cars. So I really do love this idea of them making something in Hogwarts Legacy that is so impactful and so beloved by WB and maybe even J.K. Rowling that they say, hey, you know what? We could use that in the next Fantastic Beasts movie, or if there are more books in the future. Some of those elements could actually come into play. WB has actually spoken officially about this in some capacity on the Hogwarts Legacy website. There are 2 questions in the FAQ that relate directly to story. The first one here, is Hogwarts Legacy an original story? And this is where we get the whole spiel about Hogwarts Legacy being an open world, single player action RPG set in the 1800s Wizarding World. But it's actually the preceding question before that that really gets into how Hogwarts Legacy kind of fits into the overall canon of the universe. And it's this question here: how does Hogwarts Legacy fit into the Harry Potter Wizarding World? And then here's their answer, word for word, directly from HogwartsLegacy.com. While Portkey games are not direct adaptations of the books and films, the games are firmly rooted in the Harry Potter universe. While remaining true to J.K. Rowling's original work, Portkey Games developers chart new territory by creating fresh ways for fans to immerse themselves in the Wizarding World. close quote. And this is why I'm actually super excited about Avalanche being the devs for this game. Again, back to Troy Leavitt, who right now is really one of the only people from inside Avalanche, or who was previously inside Avalanche, that are talking about what the culture is like there. And one of the things that gets me super excited is that he keeps going back to, in every interview he does, he talks about this idea that Avalanche is so good at really getting into the IP, understanding the IP, understanding what people love about it, understanding what the creators of the world love about it and what they want to be included, and then finding a way to translate that into video games. And even though they've never worked on a game quite like this before, that being an open world action RPG, this is what does give me hope that even though they're relatively unknown in this space, they could definitely still create an incredibly memorable and enjoyable experience because of the fact that they're so good at getting into the IP. If you look at what they've created in the past, you say, well, they've done mostly kids games. And while that's true, you have to consider the audience and you have to consider the IP that they were working on. I mean, Disney bought them because of their ability to do this exact thing. And when you think about a company like Disney, I mean, they're not going to go just buy anyone to take their treasured, beloved IP and translate them into video games. So what would you guys think about something from Hogwarts Legacy actually becoming official Wizarding World approved by J.K. Rowling canon that possibly shows up later in the series? Let me know in the comments below. I can't wait to hear from you. As always, thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.